Hi, today you're going to look at Diversity of Life, Investigation 5 vocab, and it's the beginning of the plant unit. So we're going to talk about seeds, and the first vocab word is seed coat. Definition: the tough, almost airtight protective layer on the outside of the seed. So in this picture, you can't really see the seed coat here because it's airtight and tight against it. But if we soak it in water, the bean thinks it's ready to germinate. It's underground, so the seed coat is no longer needed. So the seed coat will easily come off once it's soaked in water. And this is what the seed coat looks like if you could take it off. It's there to protect the little embryo inside. Next word is cotyledon. It's the fleshy part of the seed that contains endosperm. A lot of big words in that one. The cotyledon is the fleshy part of the seed. So the part of the seed that you hold in your hand. Almost the entire seed is cotyledon. So this whole area is the cotyledon. The bean seed happens to split in half easily, so both of these are considered cotyledons. So this is the cotyledon and this is the cotyledon. And what it's made of is called endosperm. Embryo is the next word. Embryo is the baby plant that's inside the seed. And I keep using the bean as an example because it's a good one to see all these parts. In a bean seed, if you soak it and get the seed coat off, you can see the embryo inside. And here is the embryo. This would be the future root and stem of the plant, of the bean plant. And right here is the future leaves of the bean plant. And we'll be dissecting this in class, so you'll be able to see even the veins on the leaves of this little embryo. Endosperm is starchy material that supplies food to the embryo. So endosperm is what makes up the cotyledon. So this whole thing, this is called the cotyledon. It's made of endosperm. And endosperm is starchy. So foods that you eat that are starchy are like rice or pasta or bread. So the cotyledons are made of a starchy material called endosperm. And of course, we eat this when we eat beans, and there's nutrients in it. Dicot, or you've seen it as dicotyledon, it's when seeds that separate into two halves very easily, like the bean seed does here, that's considered a dicot or dicotyledon. Di means two, so it splits into two halves. Therefore, we call it a dicot or dicotyledon. A monocot, mono meaning one, and cot for cotyledon, means that the seeds do not separate into two equal halves. So then this is considered one cotyledon, or the word we want you to use is monocot. So when you look at this corn seed, there's not going to be a seam around it where you can split it in half. There is no seam. It's only one cotyledon. But as you can see, tucked inside of the cotyledon, there's your embryo again. You got the future root and stem and the future leaf right here. And the rest of this would be considered endosperm. Germination is the word we want to use instead of sprouting. Germination is when the seeds start to grow or sprout. And right now in class, you have the petri dishes with the seeds in them, the radish and the rye seeds, and we're hoping that they will germinate. And the question is, what comes out of the seed first? What part of the plant, the root, the stem, or the leaf, when it starts to germinate? Chlorophyll is the green pigment found in chloroplasts. You guys are familiar with chloroplasts because it's an organelle found in plant cells. But we know chloroplasts are green. What makes them green? It's the chlorophyll. It fills up the chloroplast. So chlorophyll is the actual pigment found inside of the chloroplasts. Once you have your seeds germinate, we'll look at them under the microscope at each of these organs, and this is the root. So we're going to look at the root of your seedlings and kind of identify parts of a root. One part of the root is called zone of elongation. Zone of elongation is the stretched out cells a short distance from the tip, parallel to the length of the root. Parallel means it's running this way, and here's the tip of the root, so the zone of elongation is this kind of lighter area right here, the smooth looking area. And you can see that these cells are very elongated. There's one cell right there that's very long. That's why it has the name zone of elongation. Another part of the root is called the zone of maturation. And of course, you can see the root word in here, mature. And that's exactly what the zone of maturation is. It's the mature part of the root, or the oldest part of the root. And what happens there is it starts to develop root hairs. Just like on a mature person, a man, when they mature, they get facial hair. The root on the older part will get root hairs. And that's what these little things are here. These are root hairs. Notice there isn't any in the zone of elongation. It's only in the oldest part of the root that you'll get root hairs. This is called the zone of maturation right here. Root cap is the very tip of the root, and it's protecting the root tip as the root pushes through the abrasive or the very coarse soil. So the root cap in this picture is this kind of clear cap looking thing. It's made of cells, so that's what all these things are, is they're cells. And you'll be able to see this in class when you look at your roots, but this clear cap thing is called the root cap. Think of it as when you wear a cap and go outside, you're wearing it to protect yourself from the sun or the wind or rain or whatever. That's what the cap is for the root. It's there to protect this little tiny tip that's brand new. And of course, then that's the root tip. The root tip is just behind the root cap, and it's where cells are actively dividing. So that's why it's so dark. These cells have not elongated yet. They're brand new. They're just dividing and making new cells. So it's very dark in color, and they're very, very tender. So that's why we have the root cap, to protect them, so it can push through the soil and find water. Root hairs, we talked about root hairs being in the zone of maturation, and root hairs are straw-like extensions in the zone of maturation. They're there to help take up even more water. The root itself is taking up water, but then these root hairs also help in taking up even more water. So those are the root hairs. You'll also see running down the center of the root something called xylem. Xylem is a tube-like structure that carries water and minerals throughout the plant. So it's how the water gets up through the root into the plant. It's through these tubes called xylem. And we'll look at xylem when we do the lab on our roots. And that's it for Investigation 5 vocab. Make sure that you write these in on your Investigation 5 divider.